Jim, hello, how are you, buddy?
What's up, man? Good to see you.
Hey, you chose a 90s movie for us. I think we need to get into sort of a 90s vibe. I got my flannel.
Man, I got my Doc Martens.
Jamie, maybe you could add a royalty-free grunge music?
It's so loud. Jamie, also add a digital cape.
Hit it, Jamie!
Trash Movie Bonanza with your hosts, Jim and Chris.
Folks, welcome to Trash Movie Bonanza, a show where two buddies look at some movies that were either like underperformers, cult hits, schlock, stuff like that. My name is Chris. I'm also the host of a channel called Comic Tropes, and with me, as always, is my buddy
Jimmy Jams and fan of the Dark Lord and all of Satan's armies. Sponsored by Doc Marten boots, guys. Don't leave your 90s party without them.
I noticed those are actually used Doc Martens. Like you can tell that you have actually been wearing those.
Yeah, I do wear them because I'm in the Midwest now and we have snow and sleet. And man, watching this, Chris, and then having my background set to red, like the warm glow of hell in this movie and everything being
you say warm.
CGI flames
cold,
and
digital.
Well, good point. Well said.
Where does this take place? Because in the comics, it's New York, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
But in this movie, that was clearly like not New York. There was like some sort of weird sky tree that they would show in like the establishing shots. I don't know where it was supposed to be.
I know it. I'll be honest, man, because we were talking before we hit record.
I just realized one of us. We didn't say what movie we're talking about this week.
Oh shit!
Why don't you tell them what movie we're watching,
guys? Here, Jamie, show the image. Spawn, 1997, baby, and it's the most 90s thing you're gonna see, guys.
I agree. I'd forgotten. I really had. I hadn't seen this since I saw it in the theater back in 97.
That's what we were talking about before we hit record. And I haven't seen it since that time either. So this go around watching it, man, I really did no research ahead of time, or I just popped it in and hit play and was like,
sure.
Oh, wow. Okay. And dude, another shocking thing in the credits that blew my mind. I was like, Martin Sheen is in this piece of shit.
Oh, I remember that.
I forgot about that. I completely forgot.
I would say that one of the strengths of the movie, because I have more critiques now than I did in 97, but one of the strengths is that they did get a pretty good cast. I mean, Martin Sheen's decent. John Leguizamo is the standout as Clown Violator. John Leguizamo is like the most entertaining part.
Yeah.
But Michael Jai White, I've always liked. You know, he's like a real karate guy. He does good action stuff.
Yeah, he's great. And man, him and Leguizamo both deserve huge props for just wearing the makeup. I mean, they're both
my God, yeah.
coated in makeup and latex and the costuming. It's like, dude, I don't know much about acting, but that can't be easy to have to put that shit on every single day. And
I didn't hear about Leguizamo complaining about it, but he said it started when they started making the movie. It would take 8 hours to put him in the suit. 8 hours to suit him up. Towards the end of the film, they had it down to 4 hours. But like, really think about it. That's like an entire day.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
When you hear about actors going through that, it's like, okay, so is he just asleep? Like he goes to the makeup trailer. When does he sleep? Because it's 8 hours to put him in the suit, and then he's acting for like most movies they shoot for like 12 hours straight, right? So
right, and then he has to take it off, which takes time. I don't know. It's a lot of work. You're right.
Wild.
Behind the
It's
scenes,
wild.
it is. I would say it was probably worth it. That the clown looks really good, like at least comic accurate. At the very
Yeah.
least, very comic accurate. Um, this movie, like based on a comic, of course. So just in case you don't know, probably everybody watching this show does know that. And yeah, kind of. Let's see. So Spawn and the other Image comics came out in '92, and this movie came out in '97.
Mhm.
That's relatively quick that like Hollywood was interested. And I don't think any other founder got their stuff into live action, right?
I
Because there
don't.
was like,
Mark Silvestri had the Witchblade live action TV show,
you're right, you're right. I
uh,
almost forgot. That's
which
true.
I've never seen, but I remember seeing commercials for
But
it. But
it at
I feel
least went
like
for more than one season.
yes, I
Yeah.
just feel like McFarlane was just such a more aggressive businessman than the rest. That
Right.
because he already had the Spawn animated series on HBO out before this movie hit. Like
Well, it was the same year,
the
but yeah,
cartoon, I believe, hit
it was
ahead
97.
of time.
Yeah, I
Because I
think
saw
it
an interview.
dead. You're right. But it
I
was
saw an
97.
interview with, yeah, I saw an interview with Michael Jai White, and they were asking him like, "Did you read the comics? Did you watch the cartoon to do research?" And he said, "Well, sure," but he was like, "But also, all I needed to know was Spawn's origin story because this is just his origin." So he's
Yeah.
like, "The comics are great, but I didn't really need to read up to issue like 22 or whatever because we're just covering." He's like, "This is all about Al Simmons for me, and this deal that he makes, and this situation that he gets himself into, and
Right.
that's that's what he based his performance off of. Was like, this is a really crazy ass thing that happens to this guy, you
Spawn
know."
has a decent origin. I feel it took at least 12 issues of the comic for him to sort of piece together his memories and figure
Mhm.
it out. Like the movie goes fast. This is a pretty
Yeah,
quick movie, like in terms of like cutting scene to scene to scene with crazy transitions. And it starts with a bunch of voiceover to sort of give that lore to us.
mhm.
It kind of like gets us ahead of the character. They're like, uh, Malbolgia is a demon that needs souls for his armies, and he creates spawns. And
The Lord of Darkness, Malbolgia, has sent a lieutenant to recruit men who will help destroy the world in exchange for wealth and power.
this is Al Simmons. He's a soldier, and you're
Right.
going to see some pretty crazy stuff with him.
And Chris, the most 90s opening credit scene I've
Oh
ever
yeah,
seen with the text where like the lettering becomes like mismatched and stuff. And my first thought was like, oh shit, I accidentally put in the Faust movie.
it's
I
so
accidentally
similar in
we're
some ways.
watching
Right.
Faust again. Oh no, it's Faust. Oh shit.
When we watched Faust, I was definitely thinking like, oh, like they really took a lot of inspiration from The Crow and Spawn, but in some ways I feel like Faust wore its budget better than this movie. Like this movie, when I saw it in the theater, I feel like I had fun. I didn't love it, but I had fun. When I watched it this time, it just felt kind of cheap because like you
Yeah.
realize they're sort of like using the same small sets a bunch. There's like in the middle, there's a lot of dialogue that just isn't like progressing things that much.
Yeah.
And then like the CG, I don't know, man. It looks like CG. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
It
some of it's so bad that it takes you out of the illusion of the movie. It
right.
because you're like, wait, what am I seeing now? This is really
Like
bad. This is
we get introduced, for instance, to Al Simmons. He's a soldier, works for the CIA. He's supposedly in Hong Kong blowing up some cartoonish terrorists, right? He like
mhm.
he's going to shoot some missiles, and they're like the most CG missiles you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
And then like you see his like sort of um like infrared vision of like it hitting the plane, and all of a sudden it looks like an N64 video game, like the way the
Yes.
plane just sort of breaks into Lego blocks.
Yeah. It's you kind of know what you're in for right off the bat. Another thing I wanted to say about McFarlane that I saw was he did one of those things where, and this is some creators do this where he like sold the rights to the movie studio for $1, but to keep complete creative control. But watching the movie, I'm kind of like, well, what creative control? Like, did
I know
he helped choose the actors? He helped restructure the story. He helped because, you know, in the comic, Chapel kills Al Simmons. In this, it's that added character, the woman assassin. I'm not trying to jump ahead, but for me, when I hear McFarlane's part of the creative control, I'm just curious, like, what does that mean? What?
Because he famously like told Columbia Pictures no, and then he accepted New Line because they like and says that he sold the rights, for $1 in addition to keeping creative control. But I don't quite understand. You're right. Like, I mean, at the same time, he did have, I want to say his name is Alan McElroy as the writer of the movie. And that guy wrote a ton of those animated episodes as well as the comic.
Oh, right.
So maybe it was like sort of like he was signing off on a lot of the people involved more than like, you know, being hands-on.
That makes sense.
I don't know. I'm just speculating. Because
I guess for me, I'm just trying to suss out the McFarlane-ness of the flick. Like, what did he really have his hands in? Like, did he want Martin Sheen to have that fishbowl on his desk with the scorpions in it? Like, that's a very specific,
I've got things
weird
to say
thing that Chris. I'm like watching it. I'm like, why is this in the movie?
Well, because in that scene, like, Martin Sheen is sort of he's a sort of the middle bad guy. He's the head of the CIA, and he's totally corrupt, and he has a fishbowl of scorpions and a tarantula.
Right.
I'm like, how many deadly animals do you need in your office? Like, there should be like a shark swimming around in the background. And, like he has like an anaconda around his neck.
Yeah. A deadly falcon like lands on his desk. There's like a little branch by his desk and it just perches next to his shoulder.
I'm like, this guy isn't Craven the Hunter. He's like a business exec type guy. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. Just like the movie starts off also with like some of that voiceover I talked about, and it's delivered by this, you know, guy with British gravitas, right? Who we eventually come to know as Cagliostro. It's just interesting like that. I'm pretty sure, wasn't that character originally created by Neil Gaiman?
I think so.
Yeah.
Him and Angela and Medieval Spawn, right? It was the three of them.
Right. Yeah. Wait, Angela, Medieval Spawn, and who?
And what's his name?
I thought Cagliostro was Medieval Spawn for some reason.
Oh, is it this? Oh, shit. Okay.
I think it's the same guy.
Yeah.
Like in different eras. But it's been a long time since I read those early issues, obviously.
No, you're right. I think you're right. Someone in the comments will correct us.
Yeah, somebody will correct us if we're not getting our lore quite right. But, you know, keep in mind, it's been over 30 years, and some of these things have really changed in Spawn these days.
Yes.
Yeah, I one of the changes that I was kind of surprised by was that they change Al Simmons. He's the main guy, the guy that becomes Spawn. His best friend is Terry Fitzgerald. And in the comics, all the characters happen to be black. You know, Al Simmons is black, his wife and daughter, and, well, not his daughter. Like, I guess it's his wife and Terry's daughter.
Right.
But Terry's black. And in this, they changed that to a white guy, D.B. Sweeney. And I heard that the logic was they were afraid that if one more guy was black, that they felt that the audiences would think it was like being marketed exclusively to urban audiences. And I go, boy, have times changed. Like that was such a concern.
Yeah.
I'm sort of surprised that he was just like, yeah, sure, you know, change that guy.
Yeah. It sort of doesn't make sense, but
it doesn't affect the story.
Yeah.
But it's
they're rearranging some of the mythology and obviously Chapel was an issue because that's owned by Rob.
Well, yeah,
and I think I'm assuming historically, like they start going into production on this movie in like 96, maybe. Right. Was at the time when Liefeld was on the outs with Image. So McFarlane's like, well, I'm definitely not talking to Liefeld about
96
Chapel.
Extreme Studios left Image.
Okay. Yeah.
So Liefeld
So
was gone by then. Plus, even if he was with them, I think McFarlane just wanted to, not deal with rights from other characters. So what we're talking about, folks, is in the comics, a lightly shared Image Comics universe. Al Simmons was killed by Chapel, one of the characters from Rob Liefeld's Youngblood. Doesn't get like lots of play. It just like was a couple pages, but it was sort of like, a crossover element. They didn't want to deal with that. So in the movie, that character is changed to a woman named Jessica Priest. She's just,
Mhm.
like an assassin type person that works at the CIA for Win. But McFarlane then retconned the comics. So also in 97, I want to say it's issue 61, that like stays in my head a little. He introduced Jessica Priest in a couple pages, and she eventually, gets killed and everything. She comes back and becomes She-Spawn.
Oh, I
So,
didn't
like
know
the
that.
Curse of Spawn book and like issue 300 of Spawn and beyond, like She-Spawn, that's Jessica Priest. She also went to hell and sort of is on a redemption arc because she was like a terrible person too.
Got it. Okay.
So
Interesting.
that's just interesting because that's a character that's around today in the comics, and that was a direct result of this movie. I would say that's the biggest lasting impact from it.
I was just gonna say that actually goes into the lore of Spawn. Then that
It's kind of cool. It's kind of
and
cool.
and not Martin Sheen's dyed beard, just for men
It's
beard.
so
That's
dark.
very.
I mean, he
He looks
really
like-
looks like you realize. Watching this, like 30 years old now, I go, my God! Like, do both Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen look like their father?
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Completely. Yeah.
You know what's funny here though is like Win is a bad guy talking with Clown, who's basically an agent of hell,
Yeah.
and they want to kill Al Simmons and send him to hell to become a Spawn.
Yes.
Their plan, Win's plan, is to send Al Simmons on one last mission to North Korea. And when he gets to this like biochemical plant, Win and Priest are there ready to kill him. And I was like, that seems like a very expensive way to like have killed this guy. Like you just shoot him in your office one day.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just like that they were like, we're going to go on this mission like way out in North Korea. We're going to already be there. Like I was like, is no one looking at your budget at all?
Completely, man. Yeah. But they wanted to kill two birds with one stone by blowing up that plant, right?
Yeah, I think he like stole some like bio data because, Al Simmons dies, folks. He comes back as Spawn. He's made a deal that we learn later. But it's been 5 years. The devil tricked him. And I like that. I like that element of Spawn a lot. That like Spawn made a deal to come back, see his wife, and like he literally got that, but he didn't read the fine print. He gets sent back 5 years later looking like, a burnt up corpse. And is like the world has moved on. That's a good element. That's a good element.
And Wanda has moved on, obviously, and married his friend Terry, and they have a kid.
Yeah, Cyan. And that's a good story element. I think that this movie could have benefited from actual like scenes with Al and Wanda and Al and Terry before he dies, like to give us that emotional connection that he's lost. There's not a lot there, to be honest, to play with.
Yeah, Chris, it's interesting you brought that up because Michael Jai mentions that in one of the interviews I saw him in. They cut out all the Al Simmons stuff.
Oh, so they did do stuff.
Yeah, they had more with his character before he becomes Spawn. And because when he saw the finished product, he was like, the director is a special effects guy and wanted to make a special effects movie and cut the shit out of all of the character stuff. So what you have is just basically a special effects movie.
That makes so much sense, Jim.
Yeah.
I didn't know that part. But like the first act of this movie and the third act both move really fast with tons of like, you get like maybe 20-second scenes, and then there's like these weird transitions of like, it feels like somebody just got into like Final Cut and was like, oh, I can do a squiggle effect transition. Oh, I can do a flame. transition. I was expecting Star Wipe at one point. Like, there's a lot of
I know.
crazy transitions.
I was disappointed we didn't get Star Wipe.
But you know what I think that hurts a movie with in general, not like specific necessarily to this, is that if you don't take your time to construct the world and the characters and their relationships, it means at some point you have to sort of do exposition dumps. And I sort of felt like the middle of the movie dragged down with people just like literally saying like, I keep my weapons here and I miss Wanda, and oh, you should like hook up like a heart monitor that if you die when it'll set off explosives. But there's lots of that just said as dialogue. And I'm like, this is like slowed down so much in the middle.
And the little kid who's introduced in the alley world, the alleyway, he's sort of an exposition character too, kind of explaining to Al Simmons like what's going on and what the world is and what is.
The Spawn comics, the early ones were pretty like verbose. They'd have lots of text with like just sort of explaining things in poetic terms. I mean, it was trying to be like a moody grunge, goth emo type thing in a lot of ways, the comic. And they'd be like Spawn perches and broods and he broods and broods and broods. But like, just you can't do that in a movie per se. So yeah, like this little kid is just like, who are you? Like, what's up?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, mister, you don't look so good.
Who are you, man?
Did you recognize him? The kid?
What is he in? He has a connection.
Of stuff back then. His name is Miko Hughes. First of all, he was that creepy kid in Pet Sematary.
That's right. That's the horror connection.
Sometimes things are better off dead, Jim.
Yeah, exactly.
He was in Kindergarten Cop.
Okay.
He was in Freddy's New Nightmare or Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Oh shit, he's the kid in that.
He was the kid in that.
Okay.
So he was in a lot of stuff like in this like in the 90s he was a very busy kid actor. And I think he did a bunch of TV stuff too. Yeah.
Boy, he hit a lot of cool little cornerstones of 90s like horror and odd.
I know.
Shit.
I think
like he's acting with Schwarzenegger in Kindergarten Cop and
that's cool. Pretty impressive. And New Nightmare and Pet Sematary are both pretty cool for what they are.
Yes. Yeah.
And he was in this. I mean,
Spawn, baby.
Spawn credit for some things. I mean, it was definitely an early black superhero film. Because I tried to look it up and I was like, I remembered Meteor Man existed, which was like, like not a comic, but it was a black superhero. And technically there was Blank Man, which was more of like a parody of superhero movies.
Right.
But then there was this, like, and this came out like, 2 years before Blade. Blade really kicked the doors down for superhero movies, I think.
Chris, if I may be so bold, can I suggest that the 70s icon hero Rudy Ray Moore, Dolomite are technically black superhero movies to me anyway. And the connection with that is Michael Jai White would then go on to make Black Dynamite, which is a spoof of blaxploitation movies, and it's a brilliant movie. I agree. Definitely watch that. If you guys out there have not seen Black Dynamite, check out that movie. It's amazing.
Jim, like, I guess I had that in the back of my head too. Like, a lot of blaxploitation is sort of like almost a stealth superhero movie in terms of like how they operate. Like, Shaft is technically a detective, but he's just so proficient and badass. He's almost a superhero. Just like, you say Dolomite. And I mean, even something like Blackula is sort of like, like getting into like a little bit the like comic booky stuff. I don't know. Yeah. Because I agree. And that's more 70s, like into the early 80s. So there are precursors to build this stuff on. But I just want to give Spawn some props. It got ahead of Spawn got made before Blade and Black Panther and like, I don't know, War Machine, like, like prominent black superheroes in the comics.
Yeah. It's funny too, man, because it's such Yeah, it's such an awkward time to make a superhero movie during that time because this is before X-Men and Spider-Man. So you're in
Right.
this weird little window of like 96, 97. The CGI effects aren't quite there. And it seems like people were so quick to abandon practical effects back then. Like, we got computers now. We can do this on a computer. And people were
Yeah.
probably like, okay, cool, do it on a computer. But I love now that we're living in an era where people are going back to practical because
Totally.
in a way, because it's like, just make the puppet, just make the outfit, just make the thing and shoot it. Like CGI is cool, but I feel like it sort of has made us all numb in a way.
I
And
agree.
this
Apparently-
97 era is such a specific look for effects. It's very dated.
And they actually had K&B Effects make like actual models for both Violator and Malbolgia, which are two sort of demonic characters, but they barely used it. They replaced Malbolgia completely with CG. We'll get to him later. I've got a lot to say.
Yeah.
Violator, I feel like sometimes in a close-up I can tell that it was sort of like a puppet and it looked a little more real for like, or they maybe just got a couple of special effects nailed. These are some of the guys that had done the previous year Jurassic Park. And
Damn.
that movie was seminal.
Oh,
But
yeah.
to speak to what you just said, Jim, a lot of times Spielberg was using physical, like sort of animatronic puppets and close-ups and stuff. And so
sure.
since you don't know what to expect, is this digital? Is this a puppet? It can easily trick your mind as long as it's executed well.
Mm-hmm. That's that Spielberg magic, though. This is who's the director? Mark A.Z. DePay? Is it
DePay?
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't really do much else. It was like he did some like direct to DVD stuff. I think his biggest thing aside from this might be Marmaduke for Netflix.
Right.
But I didn't see that. But technically, I guess a comic adaptation again.
Well, yeah, good point.
Technically.
Yeah.
Maybe he likes big red things. It's like capes, dogs. That's it.
His next thing was Clifford.
He wanted to.
The big red dog. It just
there's now the movie is like, like we are like almost 20 minutes in, and I feel like it's got a lot of like dialogue and stuff. One thing I thought was funny in this though, Jim, is there is a scene where Clown is sort of spying on the Fitzgeralds, and he comes to Cyan's birthday party in like makeup as a clown, and he looks like Pennywise, like fat Pennywise. He's terrifying.
Yes.
But the kids are all like, ha 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 ha. And I was like, this thing is scary. Why are people not scared?
I know. I had the exact thought of like, how did he get booked to do this children's party? He's terrifying. And he's really speaking in his creepy voice. It's,
he still talks in the voice.
Strange. It's so strange, man.
Say it's a trick, but it's not. I'm amazing, aren't I?
None of this amounts to a whole lot, but Al is just coming to terms with like realizing what's happened, and living with the homeless people, and Cogliostro's telling him a little bit about like who he is. There are scenes where it feels like they didn't need to use CG, and they did. For instance, like Clown tells Spawn a little bit about who he is, and he has this like big fart joke. And the fart is like this like CG green stuff that looks like it's just on another layer. Like we just green screened in a fart coming out of one of us. Like that would look the same.
It's like you can just do the sound effect and
that would have been fine.
Yeah.
There's lots of little scenes where like, Spawn maybe just like bumps into something and he gets like green electricity like go over him. And I was like, that doesn't quite feel necessary.
Right.
But that's a nitpick, I suppose. Like I shouldn't. I guess it's kind of cool that he has the idea of Cogliostro trying to talk to him and tell him who he is, and he's got Clown trying to tell him who he is and stuff. It is almost sort of an angel and a devil on your shoulder type thing. Right. It probably just could have been structured a little more clearly.
Yeah, I think if you're That's another thought I had, man. If you were like a parent bringing their 13-year-old kid to the theater to see this, you as a parent would be like, I have no idea what's going on here. Whereas if you
No,
went
you're
and
right.
saw Spider-Man or something, it's like, oh, I get it. Peter Parker likes a girl. His uncle dies. He gets these powers. I get it. But with this, it's like,
What do
there's a
you relate to?
clown. There's this British guy. Like, what? Who? What's
I
happening?
know. In the comics, you can like do a few things that make it more relatable. You can have subplots where you focus on the Fitzgeralds. You can have subplots with Sam and Twitch, the cops. Those are grounded, real elements. And when you go to something as fantastic as Spawn, you can at least like get into his head and talk about his emotions and you know his brooding and stuff like that. But these are all things that certainly a teenager can relate to. But when it's just literally like a guy stumbling around in, you know, like the homeless encampment, but he's in like this superhero costume. It's just sort of weird. Like I'm sure that
Right.
like mom and dad took their kids to this and they were like, why does my kid like this so much?
Yes, exactly. They're concerned about little Timmy after the movie's over because it's like, well, he's been reading these comic books and he likes heavy metal. It's fine, but now it's kind of like, what's all this devil talk and what's all this dark?
We should talk about the devil stuff. Like the ultimate bad guy is technically like this demon of hell called Malbolgia, who is collecting souls and turning them into spawn. He's going to have some sort of war someday, maybe with heaven or take over Earth. I don't know. Malbolgia sounds amazing and looks terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Did you recognize his voice at all?
This is the bargain. If you leave my army, you can see Wanda again.
What's his Skeletor?
I'm putting you on the spot. I was just curious.
Frank.
Yep.
Can you help me?
Welker.
Frank Welker. Yes.
I wonder, Jim, if you added up like all the sort of films he's been in, if he's like technically got like the biggest box office, like, you know, above like Tom Cruise and Arnold Schwarzenegger and stuff.
That would be an amazing thing to research. That's crazy. Also, though, Chris, this is the same voice as Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget.
From Inspector Gadget, yeah.
It's the same because I mean, we're old enough to know Inspector Gadget, and I'm like, wait, I know that voice. Oh,
You're going to hell. You're going to hell, Gadget.
That wasn't bad. I wasn't prepared to do an impression. That
Pretty
came
good.
out all right. He must hurt his voice doing that voice.
Oh my god,
dude.
yeah.
Did
It's
you
funny
know-
because you hear the voice, but you see just like this visual of this character, and it
and he
looks like
doesn't move
low
his mouth
budget.
when he talks.
I know it's very bad. It's very.
Do you know like the story of like what that is actually based on, that CG character?
No,
It's reused.
please tell me.
So they had made a puppet and they decided to do it as CG because they're more like, we can. But they didn't have enough time. So what they did is the movie An American Werewolf in Paris like had CG werewolves, and they took a CG werewolf model and just sort of like stretched out its ears and pulled out its jaw and like changed it a little. If you look, like it starts to become obvious. Like that's all they did. They took an existing model and sort of warped it a little.
Fascinating. Okay, holy shit!
They did not create like a totally original CG model. They didn't have the budget or the time.
Lazy.
I don't know.
They took the budget. It's budget.
They took, apparently they said they filmed for like 60 days, like 2 months. That's pretty quick. They did the effects for about a year.
No kidding.
Yeah, about a full year. And the budget originally was only supposed to be $20 million, and it ballooned up to 45. And
I saw that.
It doesn't look good.
Yeah. And what's crazy though, man, is the movie, its opening weekend, it got second place and it made money, right? It made
money.
A profit?
It made a profit, but it made something like $89 million by the end.
Yeah.
So it wasn't massive. It probably didn't lose a lot. It probably didn't make a lot.
Yeah.
After you account for like advertising.
It's hard to believe that you could see this in the theater.
It's kind of impressive. It's kind of
Yeah.
impressive.
Like
We
this.
joke about something like Faust, and that was directed video, basically.
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm imagining McFarlane, the Todd father, going to the movie premiere of this with like his family and kids, and them just being like, "Oh, okay, huh."
Cool. I mean, it let him make more toys, I guess, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not talking trash about him. I'm a huge
No,
McFarlane
Todd's
fan.
awesome.
It's just
Todd's
interesting how all this stuff works, because if you're a creator and your stuff's being made into a movie or a cartoon, there's guaranteed there's going to be compromises. So
Yeah.
what they put on screen, I mean, it ain't half bad. We're just sort of talking shit about a 35-year-old movie,
Dude, I
but
mean,
out of love. We do it out of love.
I mean, and we look at this, and it's like a company as big as, like, you know, Marvel was still putting out stuff like that Captain America movie from like 89 or 94 or whatever. I don't know. The
Right.
Punisher movie with Dolph Lundgren, where he doesn't even wear the Punisher symbol. You know,
Right.
like Howard the Duck we've talked about. Like that's a huge company that like couldn't make a good movie, really. I mean, you might like some parts of it, but like Punisher's not too bad for what it is, because it's an action movie. But it's still like, you know, like and Todd McFarlane, he's more of a cottage industry. You know, he's got like a few people that he made the comics with, and a few people that were running his then sort of newer toy company. But he's not like the size of a Marvel or DC. So it's kind of impressive that he could jump past all of these people and get something out. There's a lot that I'm impressed about like that Spawn came out. It didn't lose money. There are parts of it I like, but it doesn't quite work as like just like I could not just sit back and watch this again and again. I couldn't.
Yeah. I feel you on that, man. There's points of this where it gets a little I don't know if annoying is the right word, but there's parts of the movie where I was kind of like almost distracted and ready to like look at my phone real quick. Like a lot of the alley scenes and exposition scenes, and
it doesn't add up.
You know, John Leguizamo is great, but there's so many scenes of him just sort of chewing the scenery that, and you know,
yeah, like now it's like it's almost 40 minutes in when we sort of get our first bit of action. We've had special effects, but we haven't had action. And Spawn does the sort of Batman thing of breaking through like a window on the roof to interrupt Jason Wynn's party. I don't know why he's having a party, but he's got a party with terrorists and stuff like that.
Gathering the bad guys. He's
just gathering bad guys and going like, I'll secretly sell you some weapons later. And they're like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
There's a little like gunfight with Priest. Of course, Spawn kind of easily wins that. I think what disappointed me about those, though, was they've got these like catchphrases that are not clever at all. Like when Spawn arms himself up, he goes,
"Time to get reacquainted, Jason."
And I'm like, okay.
Right.
Or like, what is it? Like Priest is like out of bullets and Spawn is there and she goes,
"You don't have the guts."
Yes. Yeah, and what's so weird about that is it's like, why would you think that Spawn doesn't have the guts? He in a previous life as Al Simmons, he was a ruthless killer. Like, why would you not think that he had the guts to?
Right? Like the dialogue just isn't like clever. You're just it's functional, and you're like, okay. There were one or two special effects in here that like it would be mixed in with stuff that like I didn't like the chains and the cape. I didn't love how big that was. But then there'd be something like he masks up and like the way the mask sort of like envelops him in like layers. And I was like, that looked cool to me.
Oh, me too. Yeah, I thought that was actually well done.
And
then while we're talking costume, while we're talking cape, so obviously when McFarlane and the producers and everybody are talking about making the movie, this huge visual component of the Spawn comics obviously is the costume, the cape. McFarlane was famous for drawing these gorgeous, you know, folded, fabric-y, tattered capes flying through the air, flowing through the wind, super moody, super gothic. And I'm sure he was like, okay, this has to be part of the movie. It's part of the character. How are we going to do that? in a live action movie. And again, someone was like, we can do that as CGI. And again, I just don't know at the time if this is the most effective way of doing this, you know.
I think that like that is how it needs to be rendered, but it doesn't look like cloth. It
Not at
looks
all.
like shimmery, like watery material, and the lighting effects isn't like it. The way it lights the cape is always different than the way it lights the people in the scene and the backgrounds and stuff. So the lighting is just off enough that your eye is just like, it doesn't look right. I can't always tell in the moment exactly the part. I'm not a special effects guy, but you can tell that it's rendered differently. Or maybe it's even rendered at a different frame rate or doesn't have like motion blur to it. Now that I think of it, it probably didn't have motion blur, so it's like really crisp in a way.
Oh, good point.
Anyway, somebody more like Corridor Crew or somebody could like explain that. It just doesn't always look right. It just doesn't always look right. It really reminded me of the special effects in Mortal Kombat, but Mortal Kombat used their effects more sparingly, and I liked that movie.
Yes, yeah. Man, I haven't seen that in forever either. Holy shit.
Maybe someday, future material.
Yeah.
Michael Jai White, like, he did go on to like do a bunch of other comic book stuff, you know, like you mentioned Black Dynamite, that's kind of comic booky, but he was in Dark Knight.
Oh yeah.
Remember?
Yep.
And he was Bronze Tiger in the Arrow show. He was like a recurring character. He got to play Bronze Tiger.
Ah, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. And it was like one of the better parts because he was part of like Suicide Squad and eventually like sort of became more of a good guy, like in the comics. And it used more of his martial arts prowess because in this, he doesn't really do a whole lot of, say, like flips and kicks and stuff. Like you get the sense that Spawn is athletic and Al Simmons is athletic, but he doesn't really get to show off what he can do. Like Michael Jai White is legit awesome in like low budget karate movies.
Yeah, he's a badass.
He's really cool.
Well, most of the action in the beginning is Spawn still using weapons, guns, right? Shooting people. Yeah,
he's very gun heavy.
And it's not till later he goes through a very, very, very quick training sequence of like, here's how you use your chains and here's how you use your cape, sort of. And it's a very quick thing.
You know what's funny is you were just saying, like, you know, originally used guns, and that's how he kills Priest. He kills her pretty easily.
Right.
Did you catch the scene of like her getting carted off like to the ambulance, what like the extras were saying?
No, wait, remind me.
Jamie's got to include this.
Okay.
What these are two medics talking to each other. He goes, what do we got? Gunshot wound to the head. She's dead.
All right, what do we got here, fellas?
Gunshot wound to the head, Doc.
She's dead.
You're like, right. A gunshot wound to the head will usually do that because it's like point blank, like right.
I know. I was gonna say, and there's a mark, like literally. It. Well, yeah, dude, she got shot in the brain. She's dead for sure.
Yep, that'll do it. I was like, what? What did I just hear? This is like, there's a bunch of like exposition and stuff in the alleyways, but we finally get the clown turning into the Violator, and Violator's a good design, very CG, but it looks kind of cool for a little while. And we get our Todd Father cameo.
Yes, of course. You got to have it.
I'm glad that he was in his own movie. I'm glad he was in his own movie. I'm surprised he didn't get a line.
Yeah, that rewatching it, I was trying to remember, does he actually have a speaking line, have more of a scene? It's kind of surprising that he didn't cast himself, because in the Spawn animated show on HBO, he would intro each episode.
I love those, by the way. Have you?
It was so great.
Jim, have you ever seen the show Garth Marenghi's Dark Place?
No.
It's a hilarious British show where this guy sort of he's a writer sort of like Stephen King, but not as successful. And he supposedly is like, it's a documentary, but you also see the show that he made based on his books, where he's like a doctor that also investigates supernatural crime within the hospital.
Oh, cool.
And he introduces, he's like, I'm Garth Marenghi. Get ready for the scariest thing you've ever seen in your life. You know, it's okay if you're so scared, you know, you piss yourself. And that was a little bit like Todd McFarlane. He's like, welcome to my macabre world.
Yes.
You're going to be
Yeah.
very, very scared of what you see.
Yeah.
He had a thicker Canadian accent back then, too. And
For sure.
Are you sure you know the difference between good and evil? As you race around trying to put food on the table, or pass your exams, or make love, are you confident that you could distinguish the forces of light from the forces of evil? I'm Todd McFarlane, creator of Spawn, and to me there's nothing out there in life that is all black or all white.
Greetings, traveller. I'm Garth Marenghi, horror writer. Most of you will probably know me already from my extensive canon of chillers, including Afterbirth, in which a mutated placenta attacks Bristol. Back in the 1980s, I wrote, directed and starred in Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, a television programme so radical, so risky, so dangerous, so goddamn crazy, that the so-called powers that be became too scared to show it.
I love that.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so off the era, but I loved it. Oh, it was so new at the time.
It's him too, wanting to be the Stan Lee of his universe of like, I want my name on everything. I want my face out there. I'm charismatic enough to do this. And I like that he always, went for it on that level.
He's got a natural marketing sense. He's a great hype man, certainly for his own stuff. And as he's become a bit of an elder statesman for comics, I feel like he's mellowed out too. Like, for instance, when the first Venom movie came out, he didn't really have anything to do with that. But by the time the third one was out, like he created that look, and he was like meeting with like, the actors for like little promo videos and going like, yeah, what you created here is really cool. And I was just like, that's nice. Cool. I'd love to hear him talk more about, the Bronze Age into the 90s and like the people that he knew and has known. I don't know. Todd's great. He's really impressive. He's really impressive.
Yes.
Let's see. Oh yeah, so Violator kind of defeats Spawn by just tossing him into a fence, which I thought was a little weak, and then just runs away.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know what he was going for there. Like he's just taunting Spawn a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
And finally we get an exposition dump. Cagliostro pulls him off the fence and runs around him like a cartoon Flash and ties Spawn up, and he's like, time for you to learn how to use your suit's powers.
That's the training. See, the very quick training thing.
So quick. And then like Spawn is instantly like, now I know what to do. Like less than a minute, folks. Like he's just like, now I know what to do. He gets on a motorcycle and transforms it with his cape into like some sort of like battle thing. I don't know what to call it. Cartoon.
It becomes like a Masters of the Universe, like He-Man battle assault vehicle, Chris. It's like
with pizza shooting action.
Yeah. With hellfire cannons.
Violator is there driving a huge truck and again taunting him. And there's like this big chase scene, but I'm like, a chase scene to what end? Like, what do either of these guys want right now?
Exactly. Like, what are the stakes? And also, it seems like Violator can sort of just do anything and be anywhere. So he's like this trickster character, right? But like, I don't know.
He can take all sorts of abuse. For instance, Spawn just sort of like, anchors his bike and makes the truck crash into it. It explodes. And Violator just goes shooting out of it like a cartoon, and he's fine. And he's just out of the scene. He's like giggling as he flies off into space.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, like Clown can't be hurt, I guess.
Yeah.
For now.
Right. Until he does get hurt later. And
right. It's kind of honestly like at this point, folks, just to be clear, it becomes an extended action sequence for the whole rest of the movie, which is close to 30 minutes left. Wynn and Clown hold the Fitzgeralds hostage. Spawn shows up, and this is when Spawn all of a sudden like starts actually using powers. Because up till now he's just got his suit. and he just like looks at Wynn with green X-ray vision and removes that device that could set off the bomb.
Yeah.
If you weren't paying attention to the quick training montage, you missed the fact that Cagliostro says like, yeah, you can basically do anything, but you only have a certain amount of power. How much power? We don't know. What are the limits? We don't know. But you can do anything.
Right. He has like magic surgery eye power of being able to look and then have that device just come out of Martin Sheen
without killing him.
That's a cool power, Chris. That's a cool thing to have.
And then Cagliostro shows up to help. He like stabs Clown, I want to say, and says, "Mind if I cut in?"
Mind if I cut in?
I was like, oh, now we're doing, like, we've got like, 13 minutes left or something, and now we're going to do the puns?
Yeah.
I wanted that throughout. I wanted that throughout. Like, it doesn't have to be Spawn. If Spawn is like too serious, that can be a contrast. But, if like Priest was like, you're number one with a bullet today, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Something, man. Because Violator disguises himself as Wanda, and Wanda's tied up when Spawn gets to the
house.
Are they whose house? Are they at the
Fitzgerald's house?
Fitzgerald's house? Okay.
Yeah, I know. Right. It's so vague. There's no establishing shots.
Yeah.
There's lots of things, but no establishing shots, folks.
Yeah, there's just rooms in this movie, you guys, where it's like, okay, now we're in this room. Whose room is it? Well, there's a scorpion bowl, so it's Martin Sheen's office again.
Yeah.
Or
it's
a suburban room. I guess it's Wanda's house.
I guess.
Who knows?
And then they chase Violator into the fireplace, which apparently becomes a portal to hell.
Right.
And I know that they were trying to go for epic with this. Like, there's a vision, I guess, to hell. It looks chaotic. It looks red. It looks like Jim's room.
Yeah.
A lot more motion. A lot more motion. I didn't like how it looked. It looked like not just a video game, but like a video game of that era, like a PS1 video game or something.
Completely.
And there's like a fight scene, but I can't explain it because it is just chaos.
Yes.
It's just things moving around.
Yeah. And Spawn is able to take out the army that has been built up in hell.
Yeah. They're all spawns, but somehow he looks at them and zaps them all.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why does he... What makes him better than them? I don't know.
Right? I don't know either. It's a good point.
Like, they all became spawns. Didn't they go through a similar thing?
Is it because he agreed to the contract of being like the leader of the Hell Army? Does that give him extra like chosen one type powers? Or am I just reading into all
of that? But that makes sense. I forgot that he was sort of being groomed as a leader because the others all look the same.
Yeah,
they look like him.
So his contract was he's going to become the leader of Hell's army.
So maybe like the others just have a suit, but he has the additional powers, like the remove surgical vision things, for instance.
Dude, I don't know. Yeah.
No, I mean, that makes sense, Jim.
We're adding our own
mythology.
Yeah.
I'll go with it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a dumb guy that has it all like spelled out for me. Sure, I'll go with that.
Yeah.
And then Violator comes back into like the living room again, and this time Spawn can just beat him. Like Spawn like cuts off his head, and although that doesn't even kill him now that I think of it, because he just sort of like turns into like really weird fake looking gel and is like, I'll get you another day, and climbs into the fireplace.
Yes, that's true. He'll be back.
And then that's basically it. Yeah, I'm sure he would be back in a sequel. The only cool thing after this was just that like Wynn gets arrested, and it's like a cameo thing, but the detectives arresting him look like Sam and Twitch from the comics.
Mm-hmm.
No dialogue, but that's cool.
Right.
And that's it though. It ends kind of like there's no sort of final comments or denouement or anything. It just sort of just sort of fizzles a little at the very, very end.
Yeah.
It
There's
isn't like he's like,
nothing.
I'll be watching over you, Fitzgeralds. I don't know, or like, if
Yeah.
hell ever tries to come to Earth, I'll be here. There's no sort of statement.
Right. And I'm sort of realizing like the only real connection with Spawn and the family is with the daughter. Like the daughter is able to see past his disfiguration
True.
and recognize him as like a noble kind of character, a helper. And it's kind of like the idea of like, oh, little kids aren't as judgmental as adults, and she can see the purity in this guy, in Al Simmons, But other than that, man, there's not really
I would say
connection.
that like the only thing that bugs me about this is that like it feels like people could just tell each other things and they don't. Like Cagliostro from the beginning should be like, whoa, before you go too far, you have been reborn. Like you try to remember you were just in hell and like this is what happened. But instead he's just sort of like, I'll be here when you're ready. When you're ready to learn.
Yeah.
Or like, why can't Al just go like, stop, I'm Al Simmons. I'm your former husband. I'm like your best friend. Here's something that only I know about our history. Like people don't tell each other things that they could tell each other. There's no reason for them not to.
Yeah.
Come up with a reason for them not to. I don't know.
Do you think that there was like, I forgot that Wynn survives and gets arrested. I assume that he would have been murdered. Do you think that there was like a sequel
there definitely
idea
was
of like the clown Violator doesn't actually fully die. Wynn doesn't die. Let's see if this is going to become a franchise. Let's see if this.
I think that they wanted to, and I think that like they just started taking their time because it hadn't made a massive profit. If it had made $100 million profit, I think it would have been fast tracked. It only made, probably at the end of the day, maybe $20-30 million profit before like video sales. And so like, they're like, yeah, for the right idea, we'll move forward. And it just never happened.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's been, and since 2007, McFarlane's been talking about rebooting it. Since 2007, he's like, oh yeah, it's coming.
I know. I was going to bring that up of like, well, first of all, Chris, our show, Todd and the rest of you guys involved in the new movie, go ahead and watch this show and just take notes on what do works. And what Chris and I, our suggestions for what went wrong with this movie. Yeah, feel free to use our ideas. We know you'll be watching the show. Second of all, you're right, man, McFarlane, again, great hustler, but 4 years ago, he was like, we're in production on the new movie. And it's, is Jamie Foxx still attached?
Since 2013, Jamie Foxx has been saying he would be Spawn.
Okay.
It's 12 years ago.
So where's all that at now? Is that still?
I'm sure it will happen at some point. I'm sure it will, but I don't think it's in production yet. I don't think so. I think that Spawn could definitely work. I think that I think it's not as important as this first sort of attempt to drop all that lore. I don't think you have to drop all of that. He comes back. He could be wondering till the end of the movie exactly what happened or have him fight Violator. But I think it needs to be sort of like, I think that there were too many enemies in a way, like Wynn and Clown and Malbolgia and Priest. It's too much. It divides the focus. Like it should have just been sort of one of them. And then in the sequel, maybe you reveal they're working for somebody higher up. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can hint at some of this stuff, but it was a lot. It was a lot of like different sort of enemies. And I still don't really understand what Wynn wanted. Like the villains had poor motivation. He wasn't like, I want to poison the world because I'm dying from cancer and it's not fair. I don't know. Just, some sort of motivation or
right.
My wife died in a car accident and, it was covered up and I'm going to, get into the CIA and figure it out and they're corrupt and I'm going to punish them all. I don't know. I'm just like, There needs to be a motivation. He's sort of evil.
Yeah. He, dude, the way Martin Sheen looks and the way he plays this, it's like, when is an evil doppelganger stereotype of like, of almost like Martin Sheen, where it's got the beard and he's got the gravelly voice. And I was like, is this evil Abed from Community? Like, it's such a silly version.
From like Mirror Mirror. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But also, man, I thought it'd be hilarious if it was like, Martin Sheen has done all this incredible stuff in his career, all sorts of movies. I mean, he was in
Apocalypse Now alone.
Brilliant masterpiece. But for this movie, I thought it'd be funny if it was like, his wife was like, we need a new swimming pool at the house. So this script came in. Can you just do this Spawn movie, whatever this is? And we need the new pool. And he's like, sure, honey, that's fine. But I'm assuming he didn't know what any of this was beforehand.
I don't think any of them really did. Maybe like Wazamo, he seemed to like have a pretty good handle on what was being asked.
Yeah.
I've seen more disjointed tones, though. Like, I wouldn't say that like one person was hamming it up and the other person was like giving it like every bit of gravitas that they could. You know what I mean? Like, it works okay tonally. I would say that like it's almost like it's edited in a strange way, where like we're not getting quite enough about who the main character is or what the bad guy wants. And we're just, I think you're right. You said it was, the guys wanted it to be a special effects showcase. Okay, but the effects have to like serve the story. And it felt like you're just constantly getting to a scene that had an effect.
Yeah. It had that cut up, like things are missing, like you said, in the editing. And
that's how it felt to me.
Yeah. Still better than Madam Web, though, with the editing.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, maybe. Let me second guess that. Wait. Let me think about that. Maybe.
Madam Web is funny for what it is. Madam Web is just so ridiculous.
It's a legendary.
It's just a wonderful accident.
It's funny, man. Not to go off on too much of a tangent, but I finally saw the recent Suspiria movie.
Oh, good.
And it's so incredible. And I think it's such a wonderful masterpiece. Yes. I did not realize that the girl from Madam Web, what's her name? Dakota. Dude, she's actually a fucking incredible actress. It's just obviously the material of Madam Web was shit and she was indifferent and didn't care. But her in Suspiria, her performance is like, unbelievable.
I totally agree, Jim. I wanted you to see that one because usually, like, I'm like, remake, whatever. It's really good for what it is. It's really amazing. Yeah. All the performances in it are good. But yeah, that's like pretty much the only thing I've seen with Dakota Johnson that I was like, oh, I liked her in that.
Okay, because I haven't seen any of her other stuff, but I like now part 2 of our show is Suspiria movie review. You guys
remember when we used to jam in two movies each episode? Like now we just like flow into talking about Suspiria for an hour and a half.
Oh my God.
I'm glad you suggested it. It was fun for me to go back to the 90s. It was fun for me to go back to, I read Spawn like at least the first 100 issues. At some point I did sort of drop off, but I definitely used to read Spawn. And it was fun to revisit that character. It sincerely was fun. In that, like there were a bunch of these things that tickled my nostalgia funny bone or whatever you call it.
Definitely. So I do love Spawn, the character, and I have huge respect for anything McFarlane related. Just because I remember I just remember being
a variant cover for Spawn. Have you?
I have not, but during my Girl Scouts Magic Socks run, Image did a month where all of us had the option to do a variant cover related to Spawn. Oh. So I have a Girl Scouts Magic Socks variant cover. I believe it's for issue 3, and it's one of the Girl Scouts painting the Spawn symbol on a wall. That's awesome. That was my Spawn tie-in. And what's crazy, man, 3 or 4 years ago, I got to visit the McFarlane offices in Arizona because I'm friends with Thomas Healy, the editor-in-chief of McFarlane Productions. Right. It sucks because I just missed Todd. Todd left and I just missed him. But in their office is a CGC graded copy of that Girl Scouts variant cover.
Oh, that's so nice.
So it's kind of funny because I was like, wait, so Todd sees my cover every day, and Thomas
that's
is like,
so nice.
yeah. Like, oh shit, okay. That's fucking cool. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're Thomas is a buddy of mine, and I'm always, whenever I see him, he's always like, we're gonna get you some sort of Spawn thing at some point. It's just Todd
Even
being like,
Soria, I just feel like you'd be a really good fit in the world of Spawn. I really do. So
yeah,
I'm just trying to manifest that on as a fan. I'm just
we'll
trying
make
to
it happen at some point. Yeah,
I would love that. I would love that.
It's a great character, man, and McFarlane is the man. We love him.
Absolutely. No, my respect for Todd has like grown and grown over the years because of what he's built. It's really, really impressive. And yeah, Spawn is still running today, monthly.
Oh yeah.
I don't think that there's, yeah, I mean, as far as like an independent or like creator owned comic, he's at least had his hand in every issue. Sometimes he's switched over to like just inking or just writing, things like that, but he's kept his hand in it. And it's still going strong, well over 300 issues. That's a huge accomplishment. It's a huge accomplishment here.
Oh, yeah, man.
You know, nobody's ever going to do like 300 consecutive issues of Spider-Man. That's just never going to happen. It's just not, because it's owned by a company. For American like comics, you've got things like long running things. You've got Spawn, you've got Savage Dragon, you've got like Cerebus. You've got like, things that are a little more intermittent, but like still have huge runs like ElfQuest and Hellboy and stuff like that.
Yes.
But Spawn has got the most issues, and it's really impressive.
Yeah, man. I dig that it's still out there. It always needs to be around in some form or another.
I hope so. I hope so. Shall we go play with our Spawn toys, Jim?
Let's do it. I'm ready.
It's time. What do we got to plug? What do you got to plug?
Oh man, guys, if you don't mind, cruise over to the Ink Pulp channel on YouTube, Ink Pulp Live. We've been cranking out shows, having a blast, tons of incredible special guests. Check out the archive there. Also, by the time this video goes up, the new art book, Ballpoint Slayer Volume 2, might be in the shop of my website, jimbafoo.com. This is the printer's proof, and I've got a bunch of these heading my way soon. So just available on my website and at my table at conventions. And while you're at the site, sign up for my free newsletter as well. Chris, what do you got?
Well, just real quick, do you have any convention appearances coming up that you know about?
I do. I'm leaving tomorrow for Louisiana Comic-Con this weekend. I mean, that'll be past when this airs.
By the time
and
this
then
gets out.
We have Planet Con here in Kansas City at the end of March. So this show might be up before that, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I'm planning on going to C2E2 to hang out with Sean Crystal and Matteo Scalera, but I'm not actually tabling. But I'm going there. And I'm also going there to challenge Jorge Corona to a dance battle, as you know.
You know what I didn't talk about in our episode last week about Step Up to the Streets? One year, I was at Chicago Comic-Con, and I was there with my friend Matty Field. He's a really funny stand-up comic and he brought like a fat suit.
Oh,
and
shit.
He was down in the lobby, like challenging people to a dance-off. And David Mack came up, and they had this epic dance-off together. It was pretty funny.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yes. Like, look at this. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. I've seen David dance.
By dance movies.
Yeah. It's impressive.
It was pretty cool. And then my friend Nate Belgard, who's drawn tons of comics, over the years, he drew Maddie giving David Mack the Mac Breaker. It was like the famous Nightfall issue where Bane is crushing Batman, but it's Maddie giving David Mack the Mac Breaker. It was pretty funny.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Anyway, just fun. I hope you guys check out that episode, Step Up to the Streets. We all had fun talking about a ridiculous movie.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I have, by the time this comes out, I'll have already been at like Emerald City Comic Con. I'll have had some panels there. But in stores, March 26th, Radiant Black issue 32 comes out. It's small, but I've got a backup that I wrote and drew, and would love it if you asked your comic shop to pick that up. Other than that, I should have an episode on comic tropes. By the time this comes out, I'm working on one about Stuart Immonen, who I just think of as an artist's artist.
Yeah. He's incredible. Damn.
Really, really good.
Yeah, that guy can draw.
And I don't know, like I won't give it away just because I don't know how long it'll take, but we do have ideas for future episodes of this that are pretty exciting. So keep man. Subscribe, hit like
and subscribe, and check out
hit the notification
newsletter. You gotta say it. It's a given, but you gotta say it. You do.
You have to say it.
Yeah,
folks, I really appreciate y'all being here. Jim, I also appreciate you. I have so much fun talking movies with you, dude, and I learned things from you. So thank you.
Dude, likewise. It's always a blast. And we got to travel back to the 90s, which is always a soft spot in my heart for that era. And who knows what next review what era it will bring us to.
Who knows?
80s maybe, Chris? Maybe
80s,
70s? I don't know. I don't know.
All right. Take care, everybody. Keep watching trashy movies. What do we say?
Keep it trashy.
Keep it trashy.
Trash Movie Bonanza. Like and subscribe. Thank you.